and contaminated water. In 2011, the court, in a petition seeking to protect the rights of child workers against exploitative employment, granted the directions saying that such employment was indeed a violation of the right to life. More recently, in 2014, which is something which has earned more of a reputation internationally than almost anything else, there was a devastating building collapse. And the word Rana Plaza immediately conjures up this image of more than 1,000 persons, most of them women, workers being killed. And we actually witnessed this happening from hour to hour. And I remember walking into court while the building was falling, saying, I want to appear for the victims. They said, where is your warrant of attorney, Wakalatnama? I said, that will be seen, but at the moment I undertake to produce them. And we got an order on that day as the building was falling. And the following morning, the owner of the building was apprehended at the Indo-Bangladesh border. He was trying to escape. The justice that he certainly deserves to be the object of. The Indian Supreme Court has not only earned enhanced public respect by affording access to justice to the poor and the vulnerable, marginalized and excluded, but it has provided legal resources to develop the human rights discourse to enable the judiciary to play the role of enforcing economic and social rights. During the 80s, the Indian Supreme Court, through series of decisions, creatively interpreted the right to life so that it would embrace the right to health in 1981. The Indian Supreme Court interpreted the right to life to include all that goes with it, namely the provision of the bare necessities of life such as adequate nutrition, clothing and shelter, and facilities for reading, writing and expressing oneself in diverse forms, freely moving about and mixing and commingling with the fellow human beings, thus taking the right to life in a very broadest possible sense. In 1984, the Indian Supreme Court further extended the meaning of the right to life to include the right to health, stating it must include protection of the health and strength of workers, men and women, and of the tender age of children against abuse, to develop in a healthy manner, and in conditions of freedom and dignity, educational facilities, just and humane conditions of work and maternity relief. In 1986, the Indian Supreme Court in the Olga Tellis case held that an equally important facet of that right is the right to livelihood. The same liberal approach was reflected in Vinson's case in 1987. The Supreme Court held, quote, a healthy body is the very foundation for all human activities congenial to good health. Maintenance and improvement of public health have to rank as high as these are indispensable to the very physical existence of the community. So you can see how since the Constitution was adopted in 1948 to 1987, how liberal interpretation, sensitive interpretation by the highest judiciary, sensitive to the human rights of the person whose rights were intended to be protected, is that now you have a jurisprudence and a discourse which has greatly expanded the concept of human rights, the entitlement to remedies, and the role of the court. Coming now to something which has become much more of a dreaded threat in our own contemporary times, political violence and terrorism. The human rights discourses thus continue to develop through creative judicial interpretation of the right to life in the context of social economic rights. While this has happened, grave violations of the right to life, however, have been occurring as a result of acts of political violence of different kinds, which are broadly described as acts of terrorism. And some of these are cases of state-sponsored acts of terrorism, cases of disappearance, cases, this is a concept which became very well known in Argentina way back. And unfortunately, for things that are to be imported into our region, this was one of the most unfortunate things that has been imported. And now you find cases of disappearance being reported from all our countries. And it's not in the penal code. And a family says, I would much rather have my person who has disappeared be actually killed so we could get the dead body at least. Because disappearance means that you live in suspense for years and months, thinking that maybe he will come back, he or she will come back. This The growing concern was globally reflected in the Commonwealth initiative to establish a commission in 2007. The commission, designated as a Commission on Respect and Understanding, was chaired by Amartya Sen. I was one of its 11 members. The Commission's report, edited by Amartya Sen, was published in 2011 under the title of Peace and Democratic Society. The report observes, I quote, "Group violence through systematic instigation is not exclusively nor primarily a military challenge. It is fostered in our divisive world through capturing people's minds and loyalties and through exploiting the varying allegiance of those who are wholly or partly persuaded." The report further observes, "Trying to understand global violence through the lens of clash of civilizations does not bear much scrutiny, but it must also be recognized that reductionist cultivations of singular identities have indeed been responsible for a good deal of what can be called engineered bloodshed across the world. The engineering takes mostly the form of fermenting and cultivating alienated perceptions of difference. This report has been informed by the importance of human mind in the pursuit of peace and security. As I see colleague Vice Chancellor of Colombo, I remember going through the streets in the northern part of Sri Lanka just around the time of the elections of President Kumaratunga. And what was being told to us was that, see, what can we do? The Indian general who was in the peacekeeping force is telling me, look, what can you do when children of 18 go around with cyanide pills which they bite if anyone goes to arrest them? And there are photographs which I have shown of 18-year-olds who had been induced to commit suicide. Now I was sharing this concern with Vice Chancellor Gunasekara. You know, I have not yet understood what kind of brainwashing is, of course, the generic explanation of such things all over the world. But my point is, what kind of brainwashing can result in a person going and killing someone who has done no harm to him, killing them and then biting a bullet or committing suicide? And this is in evidence now in different parts of the world. I still believe that, you know, some people are being apprehended for interrogation. These are the brainwashed. It is one of my last aspirations in life, I feel. I want to meet the brainwashers. Who are these people who have this capacity? Tell young people, 18 to 20 years old, and the latest thing that we suffered from last year. The first case I went to rush, it was a boy from an orphanage, 16-year-old, who had killed himself. So the facile explanation was poverty, ignorance, illiteracy, he's been brainwashed. But then when this terrible case took place in the capital city, in the diplomatic area of Dhaka, the students concerned were children of prosperous middle-class families, going to very superior English medium school. Some had even been abroad for schooling. And their families were totally prosperous, so they were not victims of deprivation. And they went and attacked a restaurant in the diplomatic area, killing 10 Japanese or 8 Japanese experts and some Italians who had come to purchase garments. So it struck me, what possible way could someone have brainwashed these kids from relatively prosperous families who had no personal deprivation or grievance to go and kill people who could have nothing, could have done them no harm, the Japanese who had come to build a metro rail. What possible? Now, my aspiration is, I want to meet one or two brainwashers. So I have been a teacher for a long period in my life. I don't think I could teach my students or persuade them anyway to go and give their lives at the age of 20 for killing women and children who have done them no harm. What possible persuasive techniques can you use? I mean, I also consider I've been a successful persuasive advocate. I could not advocate this case to young people. Go and get yourself killed. Who are the brainwashers? Who has given them this capacity to brainwash? Who has provided them with the other resources to induce them to brainwash? So brainwashing is too simple a way of dismissing this problem. To me, this will be a new area of psychiatry, of pathological psychiatry, which will begin to probe the mind, begin to understand what or how, not even what, how do you brainwash? This to me is something that has not been addressed. I keep asking police people who interrogate and so on, what have you found? So, well, they're being brainwashed. But I said, with what kind of soap, with what kind of, washing elements? Please identify those. So that's where and who is supplying those agents, and where are these coming from? I have had no answer, and I keep, wherever I go, in the developed countries also, saying we've had a terrible incident. I said, those of you who are lawyers, please try to find out what's behind so-called brainwashing. Because we haven't any published answers yet. I am sure that those who do the questioning are trying to pursue this. But I would very much have offered to assist pro bono in these interrogations. I say, I want to find out, not to convict them, to find out where they got this particular technique, which gets young people to kill themselves between the age of 18 and 20. This to me is a kind of thing which is not easy to explain, not just by using the word brainwashing anyway. Protection has been used. Yes, now, our report observed that the report has been informed of the importance of human minds in pursuit of peace and security. Military operations can sometimes be justified, and security measures are extremely important in the prevention of violence. Yet it is the battle for human minds on which the success or failure of terrorism ultimately depend. The concluding observation, which was unanimous with all of us, is in resisting engineered violence, the battle for the human mind is at least as important in resisting terrorism and brutality as battles to secure physical bridgeheads. And this is our experience in Sri Lanka, which I have been constantly visiting in those days, and our latest experience, which is barely a year ago in our own country. Protection has been extended now to the right to healthy environment by amendment of the Indian Constitution, Article 48A, and the Bangladesh Constitution, Article 18A. The right to freedom of religion and the right to freedom of expression are both extended constitutional protection as fundamental rights. And by competing interpretations of these rights, the complexity is enhanced by the opportunities presented by social media of conflicting views to be expressed, which raise questions regarding involving protection of those rights. I have just added this last part because it is still possible to add to our list of fundamental rights. It's not that we think that it has been exhaustively done. This is how the right to environment came in. And so some of those that are candidates for inclusion are right to privacy, right to freedom of information, which has come through by ordinary legislation in some of our countries, but is not there as a fundamental right. A specific right to anti-discrimination on grounds of sexual orientation, and others. Regional human rights instruments have dealt with some important issues which require collaborative efforts between the state parties. The SAARC Convention on Combating and Prevention of Trafficking in Women and Children for Prostitution is an example of such a positive initiative. However, like many other initiatives, this convention relies heavily on existing legal mechanisms within the states and the assumption of mutual assistance and cooperation on these domestic institutions. Where these mechanisms are not effective or mutual assistance is lacking, implementation is necessarily limited. There is now an ASEAN convention, mechanism which is still at a nascent stage of development. The mechanism available at the level of SAARC, however, do not even match the limited achievements of the ASEAN mechanism and is very far indeed from the kind of responsive and responsible mechanism which is essential to meet the human rights needs in our region. And I might add, as I started out with this, saying that perhaps this institution, the South Asian University, is SAARC's most significant contribution to the intellectual cooperation, to the research that is needed to get to the bottom of what I think is one of the most challenging problems to global violence. The grassroots movement to which we belong, which are active in all our countries in South Asia, will not be denied or deflected. The challenge for lawyers in South Asia is thus to evolve fresh approaches to activism which can truly keep human life human and safeguard the most precious right of all, the right to life. In approaching this challenge, but daunting agenda for legal reform, of which we are constantly reminded by those whom we call human rights activists, the civilians, who are constantly bringing these petitions, who are constantly standing on the street in human chains, reminding us that this is a threat to human life, that as a community as a whole, regardless of religion, regardless of national identity, we can ignore. And it has now become truly universal. The Universal Declaration must deal with this expressions of violence as something which is threatening everybody everywhere. Thus, this challenge is one which must be faced by South Asian judges, by those engaged in teaching and practice of law, and we must continue to make our critical contributions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for a very comprehensive and brilliant inaugural address. May I now request Professor Panda, Vice President, to present a vote of thanks. Thank you.
Madam President, our chief guest, Dr. Hussain, invited dignitaries, all the guests, my colleagues, and your students. It's my pleasant privilege to offer a vote of thanks to all our guests this morning on behalf of South Asian University. My memory goes back to 2015. The Sart Charter Day, we started celebrating Sart Charter Day after Dr. Sharma joined South Asian University as the president. And the internal arrangement we have is that in one particular year, we give the responsibility to one of the faculties out of the 5 faculties to take the primary responsibility to organize the event. 2015, this was given to Faculty of Economics, and I was the Dean, and still the Dean of Faculty of Economics. And I, along with my colleague, Professor Ehsan, Soid Ehsan, we thought of inviting Dr. Hussain from Dhaka as the chief guest in 2015. I would like to read out his mail to me, which he wrote himself in 2015. Dear Professor Panda, thank you for your kind invitation to me to attend as chief guest in the inaugural session of the observance of Sart Day on December 8. I am honored by your invitation and would have been happy to participate, but unfortunately, I am engaged in an ongoing international arbitration in the London Court of Arbitration from 30th November till 21st December 2015. I had explored the possibility of a short adjournment from 7 to 9 December, but my colleagues in the tribunal have indicated that this would be unacceptable, as it would disturb the hearing in which participants and lawyers from several countries are involved. I therefore reluctantly regret my inability to accept your kind invitation. I would, however, keenly look forward to another opportunity to participate in a similar event. This was Dr. Hussain. He was so kind. The story doesn't stop here. He goes to London and he finds that he finishes his work and he comes back to Dhaka on 2nd of December. So his secretary, Mr. Sahajan, he wrote me another mail that Dr. Hussain is now free and is back in Dhaka, and if you want him to speak, he would like to come over and speak on Saturday. Unfortunately, that year we had already fixed our chief guest. We couldn't wait that long. So we are really grateful that Dr. Hussain is here this year. This year we gave the primary responsibility to Faculty of Law to organize the event today. And our suggestion was that we first approach Dr. Kamal Hussain, who had promised that he would like to come, and here he is. With a brilliant lecture on human rights discourse in South Asia, I think it gives enough food for thought for the panel discussion that's going to happen after the inaugural session. We are really grateful to you, sir, to have found time to come over to Delhi in spite of the smog, to have ventured, to have taken the courage to come to Delhi and deliver a brilliant lecture on this Saturday. I would like to thank all the invited dignitaries and our panelists from Sri Lanka and Nepal who have come here to participate in the event. I would like to thank particularly Faculty of Law, the Associate Dean and all his colleagues who have taken enough effort to make it a success. I would like to thank all my colleagues, staff and students. The hall is full. Sometimes we are apprehensive whether there will be enough audience, but it is now packed to the brim. We are very happy about that. As a token of our appreciation, I would like to request our president to present a shawl and a memento to Dr. Hussain. So thank you all very much. I invite you all to join for tea in the lawns downstairs. And after tea, the panel discussion will happen here, so we'll congregate back. Thank you.